Hello, interweb. It's your boy, Mr. Hosking. I'm here today to talk to you about the partition of Germany. We're still in the Cold War. Remember, it's a divide between the USA and the USSR. And today we're going to talk about how they divide Germany after World War II. There's really going to be two parts to this conversation. One, the divide of Germany. But before we get to that, we're going to talk more about the dividing of Berlin, the capital of Germany. This is where the Nazi Party was headquartered. So the war in Europe isn't over until Berlin falls itself. And so the USSR, the United States, Britain, and France are the four major Allied fighting groups at this point. They each will occupy a part of Germany, but they won't. They would allow for German reunification once she was no longer a threat. And this was part of the Potsdam Agreement. They talk about it. They talk it over. They decide that they will reunify Germany. Eventually, USSR is going to back down on this agreement. They're not going to be part of reunification, but they originally agreed to it. So that's a good vocab word, right? Reunification, to reunify a country once it's divided. Germany is supposed to pay heavy reparations to the USSR. Again, we talked about the United States and Britain being slow entering World War II, the European continent war. And the USSR is taking the brunt of Germany's attacks. So they want reparations. So that reparation is going to come in agricultural goods and industrial goods. Basically, in the end, the Soviet Union is going to strip Germany of factories and bring them back to Russia. So the Russian people can work in the factories and the German people are left with nothing. They also dominate their Eastern German zone. And so when we look at the division of Germany, we'll see that the Soviet Union is going to really dominate the parts that they control. They do not want Germany to be rebuilt, so they're going to be against the reunification. Really, all of this is because the Russians are taking high casualties. They spent most of the occupation trying to take over all of the city of Berlin. They want to take over all of Germany so that they have control over the fate of what happens to Germany. But German Democrats stop the Soviets. The Willy Brandt and Konrad Adenauer defend the city against the Soviet Union so that the Americans, French, and British have to be entered into their respective zones. Here's a cool picture from the Russian occupation. You could see the old style machine guns that they still had. They still aren't very well equipped, but they do have tanks, flamethrowers, you can see, and you can see what type of shape Berlin is in after the Russians are done with it. Here's the city of Berlin. You notice it's divided up into four sectors. The Soviet Union controls the eastern half, and then the American and the British and the French all control zones within Berlin. And so you can kind of get the concept of this idea that the Soviet Union is going to start the Iron Curtain. Again, it's not an actual curtain. There's no place in the world that you can go visit the Iron Curtain, but you can kind of see this red line is going to divide the Soviet Union controlled Europe compared to the democratic controlled Europe, or the Europe that's protected by the United States. So this line divides kind of the Europe, and they're not going to deal with each other. One side is going to kind of stick with together, and the other side is going to stick together. It's a term used by Winston Churchill. We talked about this already. It's used to describe the difference between communist-controlled lands and non-communist controlled lands. So we talked about Berlin, and you could see Berlin right here. We talked about Berlin being divided between the four countries, but not just Berlin is divided between the four countries. All of Germany is going to be divided between four countries. But the problem with Berlin is that it's in the middle of the part that the Soviet Union is going to control. So not only does England control here, or France controls here, or the United States controls here, like they also control parts of Berlin, which is in the middle of the Soviet Union controlled Germany. So there's going to be a road that's created that goes in and out of Berlin that these European powers in the United States are going to be able to go in and out on that road, but that's it. We're not allowed to get to Berlin any other way. In 1949, West Germany became an independent country. because the United States, France, and Britain gave back each of their zones. Again, the United States, France, and Britain are into the idea of reunification, so they combine their three zones into one country called West Germany. Its official name is the Federal Republic of Germany. It'll be controlled by Konrad Adenauer, that same Democrat that kept the Russians from controlling all of Berlin. In 1949, East Germany formally established. It's led by Walter Ulbricht, but it's really a puppet state for the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is going to control East Germany pretty stringently, where West Germany is going to kind of be left to its own. And you can see the divide again. So you have the Federal Republic of Germany and then the German Democratic Republic. This is a democratic nation. This is a communist nation. And then inside of this communist nation is Berlin, that's divided as well. And one side is democratic and one side is communist. This is really all you need to know about the partition of Germany. I hope you got some information out of this. See you later. Cybernet, I'm your boy, Mr. Hosking.